Hey everyone, welcome to the Effortless Expansion Podcast. You got Jess here. Hey, I wanted to introduce my special guest today. Amy Lee Westervelt is a mindset expert and board certified master neuroenergetics practitioner, keynote speaker, author, and thought leader who works predominantly with female entrepreneurs. Through her signature programs and coaching, she has been instrumental in the transformation of thousands of business owners from anxious and unaware to empowered and abundant. Today, I'm so excited we get to talk to Amy, so let's get into it. Hi, love. This one's for you. I'm Jess, and this is the Effortless Expansion Podcast. This podcast is for women who are ready to do it differently. Women who are tired of being tired. Women who are ready to shift out of the old ways and rules that are still lingering from generations and generations of doing it a certain way. Together, we are going to expand your life in every way. Effortless expansion of yourself, your relationships, your health, your wealth. Write your own rules, your own way, for you. Here on this podcast, you will redefine the way you show up for yourself and your desires. You will create visions for this limitless life and what it gets to look like for yourself and your family. You will reshape the way you show up for your friendships, children, and your spouse every week. Together, we will reinvent how your limitless life looks and feels in less than 20 minutes. I'm so glad you've chosen to be here with me. You ready? Let's do this. Hello, and welcome back to the Effortless Expansion Podcast. So excited to have my sweet friend that I'm getting to know here on my podcast. This is Amy Lee Westervelt with me, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her today, and we're going to get into it. We're going to have lots of fun with what we talk about manifestation and all the things, and we were just chatting a little bit about life and holding the duality of everything that us women get to hold in our lives. And so, Amy, I'm so excited to have you on here today. I want to give you a moment just to introduce yourself to all my listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Lee Westervelt. I am the dream design coach. So I really help high achieving women to figure out what it is that they truly desire so they can reconnect to it so that they can have fantastic relationships and infinite income. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much, Jessica, for having me.
Thank you for coming. This has been so fun just leading up to this and the talking with you as we were scheduling this out has just been so fun and so yummy. And that is one of my favorite words, is it's yummy. Like when things just feel really good, and it has felt like that and just speaking with you. So honored to have you on the podcast. What we really focus on, Amy, on this podcast is really, I just want my listeners, my women here to just really relate to you and I, like we're having a conversation and just see themselves really in us. So often in our lives, we see other women and we put each other on a pedestal or we compare each other and all the things. But then when we really talk to each other, when we open up and let our walls down and open our hearts, we see, dang, like she really is relatable. Wow, I can really see myself in her. We have a lot in common. Oh, let's see, her kids also, argue, and her husband also leaves his socks on the floor sometimes and all the things. So today's chat is really just about getting to know Amy better, y'all, and really seeing her and I have a lot in common in manifestation and how we teach and how we coach and all that. And so just a different perspective. So with that, Amy, I wanted to just ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your business, how you got into it, how you serve the incredible women that you serve?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. So it kind of goes back to Alaska. My husband was stationed there. It was like negative 60 degrees. The air hurt my face and I just hated it there. And I really didn't want anything to do with living there. And my husband was like, okay, we'll figure it out, figure out how to make what I'm making, or bring that into the house and I'll leave. And I was like, excellent. I had no idea how I was going to do that. But then I started pulling up all my old tools from college, The Secret, and getting back into those guys. And I started watching Bob Proctor and You Were Born Rich and stuff like that. And one of the things Bob kept saying was like, what do you really want? What do you really? And he'd like yell it at you through the TV. And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know what I want. And I realized that was the block, right? So then, fast forward a little, I got into a direct sales company very early. I was kind of like one of the top leaders there. And I did it actually because I wanted to be a visionary. I wanted to share everything I had learned with these people. And, long story short, I ended up having a team of like 10,000 people. Like it was, but I never really got a chance to flex those visionary muscles because the way that MLMs are structured, like they don't want you to have an opinion or a thought or be any leader. They just want you to toe their line. So they were not really keen on me, speaking out. There were a couple of times when I got to do speaking, but what I found was that a lot of people in my downline, I guess it's called, had the same blocks I did. They knew they wanted more, but they didn't know what more looked like. And that's kind of when Dream Design was born. So toward the end of my MLM career, when I was kind of like, okay, I'm leaving, and I was still making a lot of money at the time, but it was no longer aligned with me, and value wise, we weren't seeing eye to eye. And so I decided to leave, and I went out and started coaching on my own. And I really focused on highly sensitive, high achieving women who just always felt like they had to have the answer and they had to have it figured out and they had to, eviscerate themselves on the altar of altruism, I call it, right? Like they just had to be so good. And when it came to really figuring out what they wanted, they were overwhelmed, they felt guilty. So I really decided to focus on that. And the results have been absolutely phenomenal because it's amazing how much you can manifest when you finally just sit down and figure out what it is. I mean, some of it's right, like some of it's right in your field already. Some of it's just waiting for you to receive it. And so over the course of, I guess I left there in 2018. So from then to now, I have taken hundreds, probably thousands, but I'm being conservative, clients through this dream design process and really helped them to get a better vision of what it is that they want so that they can then connect to it and, bring it into their field.
Love. Goodness. So many thoughts on that, because so often, right, you hear, well, I think I want this, or I believe I want this, right? And I like to refer to those like as desires. We all have these like big heart desires, and we're not speaking them, or we're afraid to speak them, or we're afraid to let ourselves go there or dream there or do there, or even like talk to our husband about it, right? Like, or our dearest friends, because how could we even we can't even fathom that because of all these things, right? Let alone, are we really actually sure that's what we want? And so that's such deep heart work. And as women, right, it's my belief that we're taught to, we're last on the totem pole, if you will. Like your wants get to come last between, from everybody else's, including your children and this and that. And it's certainly it's a huge part of my mission that we talk about on this podcast is, what about if you actually, your desires came first? Hey, this is what I want. I'm going to serve myself in this way. And then I lead my family in this, right? My children get an example of, hey, this really lights mom up. It's my thing. I'm going for it. It's my big dream, my desire. And when I go for it, I teach my children to actually go for theirs too. Instead of setting the example that I was taught, at least, that actually you do anything and everything you can for your family, and whatever's left of you, which is really nothing at the end of the day, gets to be yours. This exhaustion, this burnout mentality in motherhood is something that I did sign up for. And then I saw the light and ascended quickly and became aware of, into my spirituality and into oneness, and started studying and doing all this and all of this work and leading women in this when I came out of it myself. And it's been so magical. So I'm so thrilled to hear you say that really it's, the incredible women that you've served, to realize they have this feeling in their heart for more, which is really desire. And then you've, been able to lead them, coach them through it to figure out what their more actually is. So good. That's beautiful. So can you tell me then, AmyLee, what would be just, a tip you could give my audience is for the women that are listening that are struggling for their more? What is one thing that you could give to them today?
You mean in terms of how to magnetize it, or how to decide what it is?
How to decide what it is. Because I really think, you hit the nail on the head, right? That is the biggest component. It's actually what do you want? What do you want? And we don't often get asked that, right? And when you do ask a woman this, how many times have you asked a woman this and they're like, wait, what? So I get it. You're going to really ask me what I want? Yeah. So yes, that would be the question, is to figure out what they want to help them.
Such a great question. I would say, I actually have something called the Dream Design Blueprint, and it's basically a 3-step process where you just kind of go through, these different steps to figure out what you really desire. So the first thing, of course, we start with is the feeling. Everything that we want and we desire starts with a feeling. It's really not the thing that we want. It's the way that thing or that experience or that person is going to make us feel. And we know this because, you can just have the idea of having something and not actually have it. Like money, for example, when you look at your bank account and you see that you have money, you're not actually feeling the money. You're not having access to the money. You're looking at the numbers on a screen. So we know that there's a feeling aspect. So first I like to ask people, well, what do you want to feel? Right? What are the emotions that you want to feel? And what is the state that you want to be in? And that's pretty easy for people. Well, I want success, I want happiness, I want joy. So great. So we've got that. Then the second step of the process is, what are the thoughts and what are the affirmations that you're going to have when you get to this feeling? Like, what's going to be going through your mind? And then they say things like, well, I am so happy with my life. I'm really grateful for my marriage. I can't wait for my trip next week. And so then they start really kind of attaching those feelings to the thoughts and affirmations. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle is the tangible outcomes. And so I like to say this is like, if an alien dropped down in front of you in your living room right now, how would they have evidence that you have these thoughts and affirmations and that you have these feelings? Like, what are the tangible side of this? And then, of course, it's like, well, I'm going to a concert, or my husband took me out on a date, and like, I have all this money in my account. So when we take it step by step, especially for my high achieving, highly sensitives, it's a lot easier to break it down, right? Because there's a lot that goes into this work and thinking about it. And sometimes, and this as a mom, like, we don't have the luxury of really digging into our feelings and our thoughts and just kind of what our desires are. We have to think of them sort of on a surface level. So by breaking this into a 3-step process, you can kind of do it over time. If all you have to do is think about feelings, you can think about feelings while you're in the Starbucks line, while you're at the kitty drop off, while you're wiping down the dishes. And you don't necessarily have to take the whole big iceberg of what it is that you desire. You can break it into smaller pieces. So that would be my tip.
Love. That's so good. So talk to me more about the tangible piece that, like, I love the analogy of, like, if an alien fell down in your living room, what would be the tangible pieces that the alien would see that, hey, like, actually, this is what you want?
Yeah. So like, what would be the evidence that this was your reality? Like, what would it look like on the outside, right? So if let's say you want to be, I have a desire to be a 7-figure business owner, right? Like, I'm a multi-6, but I'm not a 7. So like, what does a 7 look like? So if an alien was to drop down and see 7-figure me, what does that look like? Okay, well, there's probably someone cleaning my kitchen, right? Because it's a mess. There's probably somebody that's ferrying my kids back and forth to activities, because that doesn't appeal to me. Let me think. I'm probably going to get hair blowouts a couple times a week. So maybe I'm in the car doing that, right? Like, I don't feel guilty about how much money I spend on my morning coffee. So like, those are the tangibles that I can really step into that next level identity. Like, what's it going to look like? So we're really kind of involving all of the senses. And then when we do the tangibles, we're also really creating that movement within the vision, right? So that, like, the more that we move around in the vision, the more that we can create the idea to the reticular activating system, the part of your brain that scans the field for what's gonna work for you. And also mental rehearsal, we can really start to magnetize those things even faster.
Okay, great. Love that. So I was trying to, like, okay, so can you give me, I just needed some examples of that for my brain to be able to articulate and hone in on that. I often see that, or refer to that actually in my own work, as just like as embodiment. Who are you going to be? How are you going to dress? How are you going to act? What are you going to wear? All the things when you are that next level woman that you're calling in, like, in your case, the 7-figure, businesswoman. So love that. I love the tangible piece. You can grab onto, you can hold onto, you can see that reminds you of the very next place you're going, right? This big, bold, brave desire that you're calling in. So good. So good. So you mentioned this a little bit. I know you have children. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your kids, their ages, share anything that you feel called to. And then I would love for you to just share how you teach this same work to your children. Probably not the same ways that you do to us, us women, but can you share just some little tidbits, how you incorporate this into your parenting?
Oh yeah, this is a humongous part of my parenting. So I have 5 kids. They are 10, 8, he'll be 9 on Friday. 10, 8, 7, 5. And then I have a 3-year-old little guy. My 3-year-old was born with a very rare chromosomal disorder called Emmanuel syndrome. There's only about 500 people in the world who have it. So he has been a challenge, but he's a starseed in his own right. My kids are homeschooled. And they are very inquisitive, very challenging, very high energy people. In fact, I'm surprised you can't hear them in the background because there's two of them right on the other side of this wall playing together. And how I incorporate this into my parenting, my husband and I, we're very lucky that we see eye to eye on all of this stuff. You know, I know a lot of times people have dissonance with relationships. We don't. In fact, that's probably one of the reasons we got together, was because we were so aligned in that way. We are Jewish, so we do have a lot of like underlying faith, you know, and it's mostly out of tradition. So my kids understand all the Jewish holidays and things like that. But when it comes to the metaphysics, they've always just grown up with it. So my kids would have no qualms about saying something like, oh my gosh, I manifested this, or I'm manifesting this. Like that's just part of who they are. My husband sat my daughter down once in front of the TV and had her watch a documentary about flat earthers. And he goes, okay, so what do you think? And she's like, well, the earth is clearly flat. And then he had her watch one that, you know, refuted the flat earthers and said that the world was round. And she's like, well, Dad, the world is round. Like, I don't understand. How can it be both? And he's like, it is. It's both. That's what the quantum is. And so my kids understand that they create their own reality. You know, my daughter insists that she is from, she say, Mega Shiftia. She tells me all the time that she came here, she's had other lives. She's very adamant about it. Like if you say anything against it, she's like, no, that's my reality. And she's always been that way. So I think that, you know, it's probably harder if you just all of a sudden come into it and you start talking to your kids like that. They'll be like, what are you talking about? But mine have always grown up that way. And I think that, you know, obviously for my parents and my husband's parents who grew up in a very different time, it's probably a little off-putting for them. But, you know, my kids aren't here for them. My kids are here for themselves. And so it's really important that my husband and I foster a understanding in my children that they are the next generation, that they are going to inherit this planet, and always be connected to that empowered self, that consciousness that is inside of them, and never trying to shut that off or circumvent it for our own desires. Obviously, we still parent, right? Like we still, you know, you can't do that. You can't do this. Okay, you're in timeout. Like those things all happen, but we also really understand that they're just souls on their own journey, especially my youngest, right? Like because he's special needs. There was a time when I was like, oh my gosh, my kid has this, blah, 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 poor me, poor me. And it was like this voice came through. It was like, look, this person was always going to be like this. This is who he came to be. The question wasn't, would he be this? The question was, do you get to be his mother? And I was like, okay, shutting up, never going there again. And that was such an enriching moment for me, because I'm like, this isn't about me. This was never about me. This is about, do you want to be part of one of the greatest stories that will ever be told? And the answer is a resounding yes. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. So beautiful. Especially what you just said right there, that realization as a mom, I don't have a special needs child, but that's so powerful. That brings me to tears in my eyes about just this, you know, we do worry about our children and how we raise them. And yes, there are souls that came here that signed up to have a human experience and chose us to be their parents. And what an incredible honor that he chose you to be his mom, right? And that you get to foster him through this and his relationship as, you know, in this body, in this life, what he signed up for, have this human experience. That's so, so incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing the parenting wisdom. I always find it so, I did not start out my parenting journey being super conscious, being in this. In fact, I started out very differently. And so there's a difference between how my 7-year-old was originally raised to how my soon to be 4-year-old is. There's a vast difference. And my 7-year-old is very open, but my 3-year-old is my crystal clear channel rainbow baby, can see and do and be everything. And so, and certainly that's helped because we fostered that, right? We were playing Candyland this past weekend, and my 7-year-old Tyler was having a hard time because I had won the first game. Connor, my youngest, won the second game, and he wanted to win, right? This is always the thing. And Connor drew the ice cream cone, which put you pretty far ahead in Candyland again. And Tyler got upset and he left the room. We allowed him to have his feelings, and Connor and I finished the game, and Tyler comes back out and Connor says to him, brother, I'm so sorry I manifested the ice cream cone. I'm like,
that's adorable.
And also, Connor, you know, be sorry for the things you manifested. You call that in, you know, you want that, and your brother had the same opportunity as you. Anyways, which is so beautiful and just brings, you know, when they use those words to me, it's just like,
music to my ears. Yeah. That you do create your own reality and all the things. Yes. It's just beautiful. They are such magical little souls who are open and ready to receive. And it's just such an incredible honor to lead them in their human experience here. Thank you for sharing that. So Amy Lee, what else would you say about, could you just share some juicy goodness with us about what else is coming up in your world, what you see, what you're calling in, anything you feel inclined to share with the world? Actually, let me lead you a little bit further in it than that. So I'm really in this next evolution of myself and where I see my world going and the clients that I'm leading and actually our world as a whole. As we're currently recording this, we're coming up on the end of the year. And I have some really big visions for 2023. And I've been in the clearing of my channels, in the channeling and the downloads I've been receiving. I've been getting these big visions for where just we're going as a planet and our higher consciousness and how we are all ascending so quickly in 2023. And I would just love to hear from you and anything you want to share about juicy goodness that you're seeing for the future of us women who are doing this work, who are in raising the consciousness of the planet, ourselves, our babies, our families, our clients, one person at a time, all of us collectively. If you could share anything like that, I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So, one of the downloads that I had basically said that we have the collective consciousness, and the collective consciousness broke into a million pieces in order to have this earth experience. And so for me, it's really been about, how do I explain this? It's kind of like the understanding that we have already gotten back to whatever the whole is. We're just having the experience of living it in molasses with the illusion that it hasn't already happened. So because of that, I've just had a very new sense of like positivity and joy and really like squeezing the goodness out of every moment because I already know that it ends well, So because I know that everything is for the good, I'm just looking for evidence of that good in everything rather than, oh my gosh, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, or look at this political party, or look at this, or, some people kind of do that and use that as evidence for the breakdown. Yeah. I have had the wherewithal to realize that it's already all back together. And right now we're just witnessing what it's looking like as it stitches itself back together. Because if you think about it, and, this might be a little bit deep for some of the listeners, and I urge you to just kind of think about this. And if it doesn't really resonate now, maybe come back to it later. But if you think about the collective consciousness, when it's like just this ball, this disco ball, all these little mirrors, and it's one thing. And then it decides like, I can't really have any experiences when I'm everything, right? Like I can't feel, I can't receive, I already am and have everything. So I've got to do something to make otherness. And so by taking any one piece of that collective, now all of a sudden we've got duality. We've got light and dark here and there, you and me. And so that polarizing from that very moment is going to have to be the last thing that comes together to create that wholeness again, go back the other way, because that was the first thing that happened. So knowing that, it's so refreshing. Like, oh my gosh, of course these people don't agree. Of course this country's fighting with this country. Of course this is happening. Like it makes perfect sense because duality will be the last thing that's put back together before we're whole again. And with my understanding that we already are, I look around and I'm like, okay, good. So we're not there yet. Okay, perfect. So this was always by design. And when you think that it's by design, right? Like you look at a jigsaw puzzle and you don't go, oh my gosh, I can't find the edge piece. Like this is horrible. Like, what am I going to do? You're like, oh, it's probably under the table, or it might stuck to something else, or maybe I have two pieces put together wrong, right? But yet when we look at our puzzles and our challenges in our lives, we make them these giant crises, but from an existential perspective, it's just about fitting the pieces together. So that's really been my understanding of like, how can I just enjoy the goodness instead of worrying and stressing about all the ways I see the disparity and the chasm between the two? How can I look for what's already whole and derive my joy and satisfaction and raise my vibration so I can be a better mentor to those who need me?
That's beautiful. What an incredible download. Like, actually, that we're already whole. We're going to end up that way, right? And then seeing the goodness in everything, which there's so much value in, right? The gratitude that comes with that, the law of attraction, the attraction that comes with that, right? When you're seeing in the goodness, and I'm getting ready to launch Big, Bold, and Brave, which is tomorrow is the first day of it for me. It's a 3-day expansive experience. And we're talking a lot about fear tomorrow. And so I'm feeling just pulled to really talk about fear. And from your perspective, when you see like, well, we were whole and this is the journey we're on now and finding the good in everything, that really relinquishes, even I could just feel the energy move through you and just the peace that you have. There's so many of us that are so entangled in fear every single day and what's going to happen here or there, all these things that are happening in the world outside of us, when really inside of us lives the peace, lives the calm, lives the oneness, lives the wholeness, and knowing that all together and taking your download that we were one, we'll be back to one, right? It's the journey in between. It's the void in between where we were to where we are now, right? Or to where we're going. It's in the unknown, right? It's the journey, the living out, the becoming of where we're going back to. And there's peace in that when you can see it from, it's always working out for me, right? The universe always has my back. It's part of the greater plan, right? It is my desire. It is my mission to see the good in everything in order to lead and match myself in a frequency, be an energetic match to lead women who maybe need a hand in this, who desire a hand in this journey in becoming this, right? And going first and leading yourself in it. So thank you for that. That was beautiful. I love that. I share a lot of the same, a similar vision for where we're going. And it just feels, I'll go back to the beginning when I said yummy is like my favorite word because I just can't quite explain other than and it's the Thanksgiving time and we just had lots of food. It's just it's yummy. It just feels so good where we're going. And I'm just honored to lead other women in this, to have this piece, because I didn't have this for a lot of my growing up. It certainly wasn't modeled to me growing up as a kid and in my early years and as a young adult and as a working mom and as a working wife in corporate career, none of this was brought to my attention. So where I was to where I am now, I'm so grateful for, and this is a big part of the journey. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, Amy Lee, I did want to ask you just one super fun question. What is one of your favorite, you shared here with me before, and then also as we were recording that you're Jewish, what is one of your favorite holiday traditions? I do not know very much about the Jewish traditions around the holiday time. So I'd love for you to teach me something.
Yeah. So we have a holiday called Lag BaOmer, which is kind of while we're counting the Omer, which is I think it's like a spring festival. And so it's a really fun time to kind of have camp out food and stuff. So my husband will make a bonfire in the backyard and the kids will have hot dogs and beans and everything. And they run around and it's just kind of that first real coming back outside after Purim, which is kind of like the carnival around, the whole Feast of Esther and everything. So it's an opportunity to get out and run around. I have so many pictures of my kids just after being cooped up in, we live in Georgia, so it's not super cold, but it's cold for us, right? So it's just a great time, to just be out and in the the backyard, and we put music on and it's super fun. And we do a lot kind of as a family. We're not really very big, joiners. My husband's human design is that he's a 2-4 and I'm a 5-1, right? So we're very much to ourselves type people. And of course our kids are social butterflies. So we try to make things as fun as we can while also aligning and being true to who we are.
Oh, that's beautiful. I live in Michigan, so I can totally resonate with the whole coming outside and making it a celebration when spring gets here. Cause it is that, we joke that oftentimes in the winter, we won't see our neighbors. You drive in, you put the garage door down, there's no going outside. And then the spring, there's this, winter, and we've been next to each other the whole winter. It's just, you just don't go outside unless you really have to, which isn't necessarily true because my kids love the snow. So we are outside a lot, but it's not necessarily always our choice. And our neighbors don't have young children, so they're not part of that, experience, but, oh, that's beautiful. That's great. So as we wrap up here, Amy Lee, can I just have you share where my soul sisters who are listening, my listeners today, where they can find you on the internet to connect with you, to learn more about your incredible programs and your mentorship that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at AmyLeeWestervelt.com. I also have a Facebook group, which is called Designed to Dream. And those are probably the two. And I have Instagram. Gratitude and Glamour is my brand. So that's how you would find me there. And yeah, you can come and hang out and binge my content and do all the things. And I would love to meet you guys and get to know you better.
Perfect. I love Gratitude and Glamour. The gratitude piece, oh, so good. And glamour, I'm a luxury girl through and through. So dress me up, take me places. I love the glamour. So, which is no doubt another reason why we connected, definitely just in such divine timing and connection. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy Lee. I really appreciate your time today and just serving and getting to know you better. And y'all make sure to check out the show notes. We will make sure that we list Amy Lee's contact information, where you can find her online, her Facebook group, all those things. And it was just such an honor. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing and spreading your love and your light to all of us here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Al. I'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey, if you love this podcast episode, can you please do me 2 quick favors? 1, take a screenshot of the podcast episode you're listening to right now, post it on your stories, and tag me at Effortlessly Jess. I'm going to be so thrilled to hear from you, and I will always repost it for my audience to see. 2nd, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, can you please leave me a 5-star review? These 2 little things take only a few minutes, but they mean so much to me. Not only does it make my day to connect with my soul sisters on the internet, but as a podcast host, these are 2 things you can do to help me get my message out to impact the women of the world. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you in next week's episode. To your effortless expansion always.